Hello class, and welcome to today's pre-algebra lesson, which is about equations in standard form. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to identify x and y intercepts from these equations, and you will be able to write equations in standard form. So we're going to start with what is standard form. This is our last format for linear equations, and it's written as ax squared plus just ax plus by is equal to c. So we have a number times an x, a number times the y, and then it's equal to a number. There are three rules about this. So the first rule is that a, b, and c all must be integers. So what that tells us is there are no fractions and there are no decimals allowed in this format of the equation. So there is no fractions and no decimals. The a value must be positive. So whatever is attached to the x needs to be positive. The b value and the c value, so those two numbers can be negative, but the number at the very front should always be positive. The last one is that x or y must exist. So sometimes our equation is just going to be ax is equal to c. The y does not have to exist. Or it could be by is equal to c, so just the y exists. Or it could be the original form, ax plus by is equal to c, where both of them exist. It cannot just be one number is equal to another number. It must have a variable x, a variable y, or both of them. So we're going to start with the x and y intercepts. This is talking to us about the places where it crosses both of the axes. So when we looked at our slope-intercept form, we were talking about the y-intercept. Now we're talking about the x and the y. In order to decide the x-intercept, you're going to take just the x part out of the equation, so just 6x, and set it equal to your c value. So we're just looking at the x. When you solve this, we're going to divide by 6 on both sides, and I get that x is equal to 48. So your coordinate for your x-intercept is at 8, 0. So there is no y in the problem. That's why it's 8, 0. On the flip side of that, if we want the y-intercept, we just take out the y part of the equation and set it equal to our answer. So 4y is equal to 48. When you divide by 4, you find out that y is equal to 12. So your answer is 0, 12. Nothing for the x and 12 for the y. So when you write your final answers for these problems, they are written as ordered pairs. The x-intercept and then the y-intercept. Another example of this, once again, if we're trying to find the x-intercept, we are going to pull out just the x part. So go ahead and try solving that on your own. When you solve that part, we get x is equal to, 8x is equal to 56, dividing by 8, giving us x is equal to 7. So we've got 7, 0 as our x-intercept. Now go ahead and try finding the y-intercept on your own. So when I do my y-intercept, notice this time it is a negative 5y. So I would set it negative 5y is equal to 56. When you divide by negative 5, we get y is equal to negative 11.2. So your coordinate is 0, negative 11.2. If you preferred to write it as a fraction, you could write it as 0, negative 11 and 1/5. So we have that point where it crosses our y-axis. So our x and y intercepts, we solve for x or we solve for y. When we have just a singular variable, we have just a singular intercept. So this is already x by itself. So when I divide by 7, I get that x is equal to -7. So your x-intercept is at -7, 0. So now that we need to find our y-intercept, you will notice there is no y in the equation. So what that means is your y-intercept is non-existent. It does not ever cross the y-axis. So because there is no y in the equation, there's only an x-intercept, and your y-intercept is non-existent. Go ahead and try this one, finding the x and the y-intercept on your own. So your x-intercept in this case, you notice that x does not exist. So your x-intercept is now the thing that is non-existent. When you go through and solve for your y-intercept then, you're going to divide both sides by 6, which is going to give you y is equal to 3.5. So your y-intercept is at 0, 3.5. The other thing that we're going to do today is write the equations in standard form. When we do this, we have the two intercepts given to us. So I've got 0, -3, and 6, 0. So the first thing you need to do is to find your c value. In order to find c, you're going to take your y-intercept, -3, times your x-intercept, 6. If you preferred to do x times y, so 6 times -3, it would still give you your same answer, which is -18. Now, we need to go through and solve for our a and for our b values. So right here, we are given a y value. B is connected to y, so b times -3 is equal to our answer we just figured out, which was -18. So when you divide by -3 on both sides, you find out that your b value is 6. Then we have to figure out our a value. So our x was 6, so I have a times 6 is equal to -18. So when I divide by 6 and divide by 6, I get a is equal to -3. Now, that would give us the equation, if I wrote it right now, -3x plus 6y equals -18. But if you look back at those 3 rules that we had for standard form, it says that the a value must be positive. So in order to fix that, if your a value is not positive, you're going to switch the signs on everything. So -3 becomes a +3, +6 becomes a -6, and -18 becomes a +18. So your equation in standard form is 3x minus 6y is equal to 18. Going through another example of these, I'm going to start by finding c. In this case, I'm taking my x value times my y value, so 8 times 5, which is going to give me 40. Then my first number that they give me is x, so now I'm going to find my a value, so a times 8 is equal to 40. When you divide by 8 and divide by 8, we get an answer of a is equal to 5. Then I need to solve for my second value, so my b value times the y of 5 is equal to 40. And we have dividing by 5 on both sides. I've got b is equal to 8. So when I go to write it in standard form, I have 5x, because that's my a, plus 8y, because that's my b, is equal to c of 40. A in front is already positive, so I do not have to do any sign changing. There are 2 special cases that actually have a shortcut when you are writing equations in standard form. Notice this equation right here, or these 2 points right here, our y value is the same. When you have 2 points that have the same y value, your equation is simply y equals 5. So when you have 2 of the same coordinates, you take the letter, which is y, and set it equal to that number. Final example, the other special case here. This is what happens when our x values match. So both of them are 6. We would end up with an answer of x is equal to 6. So we only have the x values matching. If you have questions about this or anything else from the lesson, please feel free to reach out and let me know.